In our study last week, James admonished us to avoid showing partiality. Writing to the Jewish Christians, he instructs them to not conform to their upbringing and the prejudices that it instilled in them. Rather, to realize that we are all sinners, and since God has shown us mercy, we need to extend mercy to all people. Today, we're going to continue our study of James by examining the second half of chapter 2. Let's begin by reading chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm and well fed," but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by actions, is dead. To begin with, James asks two rhetorical questions. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? And then, can such faith save them? The reader's response should be, no, this type of faith is useless. James is picking up where he left off from what we read previously, beginning in chapter 1, verse 27. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Christians, since we have been shown mercy, we should be merciful to others, especially those who are less fortunate than ourselves. And as stated in the first part of chapter 2, which we studied last week, we are to do it without partiality. If we fail to be merciful and demonstrate charity to those in need, then James tells us our faith is dead. It's not real faith at all. Galatians 6:10 also encourages us to be proactive in being charitable towards others. He says, therefore, as we have opportunity, let's do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. Doing good to others, being charitable, showing acts of mercy, all this demonstrates a genuine faith. There's also an applicable quote by Dan Delzell regarding works. It goes like this: the main thing about good works is your motive. Am I doing these things in an effort to gain acceptance by God, or am I doing good deeds because Jesus died on the cross for my sins and saved my soul when I trusted Christ as Savior? There's a vast difference between Christian good works and religious dead works. Religious dead works are performed by religious people who do not trust Christ alone for salvation. However, let's not be confused. Faith with works, it does not save us. Faith alone does not save us, and works alone does not save us. Let me repeat that. Faith with works does not save us. Faith alone does not save us, and works alone does not save us. Ephesians 2:8-9 reminds us of how we are saved. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith. This is not of yourself. This is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. We're saved by God's grace. We accept that salvation through faith, but it is God's grace that we are saved. We are not saved by faith alone. But you may think that when this verse says not by works, that it contradicts what James is saying, that faith without works is dead. On the contrary, James is not saying that works save you. Rather, he's saying that works validates a person's faith. Works are evidence that someone has truly put their faith and trust in Jesus, and they're being obedient to his command to love your neighbor as yourself. A true believer is someone who has true faith they will show mercy to other people. Galatians 2:21 reminds us, I do not set aside the grace of God, for it is righteousness. For if righteousness could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing. Righteousness is not gained through the law. Paul could just as easily said, righteousness is not gained through works. We're saved by God's grace and his provision for forgiveness of sins. Jesus's death was not in vain, but it was necessary so that we could be made right before God. It's important that we not neglect God's redeeming grace. Let's continue and read verses 18 and 19. But someone will say, you have faith, I have deeds. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. You believe there is one God. Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. There are many people believe that Jesus is God. And there are many people believe that Jesus is one of many gods. Here, James is emphasizing that believing in God, believing that Jesus exists, does not save us. Believing Jesus is God is not the same as becoming a follower. It's not the same as becoming a disciple. Simply believing Jesus is God does not result in a right relationship with God. It doesn't result in a changed life. It doesn't result in changed thinking. It doesn't result in changed behavior. Simply believing in God is no different than what the demons do. They know God, they know he exists, but they are his enemy. They're not obedient to his word. They're not his disciples. They shudder at the existence of God. They're fearful of him because they know of the authority he holds over them. Is your fear of God greater than that of the demons? Does your fear or respect of God cause you to follow him? Does your fear of God cause you to be obedient to his teaching? Does your fear of God cause you to commit your life to him? Does your fear of God cause you to be his disciple? There are a few good analogies of the difference between believing something that is head knowledge and faith that results in changed behavior. One such analogy is the analogy of an airplane. You may believe that an airplane can fly and the airplane can get you from, say, Memphis to Dallas. You can believe that all day long, but just believing will not get you from Memphis to Dallas. Real faith is when you believe it will get you from Memphis to Dallas, and then you board the plane, allowing it to take you from Memphis to Dallas. That's real faith. What kind of faith do you have? Is your faith keeping you on the ground, or is your faith allowing you to fly? Let's continue and read verses 20 through 24. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. You believe that there's one God. Good. Even the demons believe that. You foolish person, do you want evidence that faith without deeds is useless? Was not our father Abraham considered righteous for what he did when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteous. And he was called God's friend. You see that a person is considered righteous by what they do and not by faith alone. To make his point, James gives an example that all Jewish Christians would be able to identify with. He presents the story of Abraham. God instructed Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. God had promised that through his son, Abraham would have many offspring like the stars in the sky. So if he were to sacrifice this son, how could that be? How could he have descendants from this child? Regardless, Abraham believed God. His faith in God was resolute. It was firm. He believed without question that God could make it happen. I'm sure he didn't know how God would bring it about, but nevertheless, he believed that God had the means to bring it about. Perhaps he thought God would raise Isaac from the dead. We just don't know. Abraham takes Isaac on the mountain. He binds him and raises up the knife to slay Isaac. But Abraham is distracted by a ram that is caught in some briars. God has provided a sacrifice in the place of Isaac. The ram was sacrificed instead of Isaac, and God provided. First of all, Abraham demonstrated great faith in God. He believed God at his word. He believed that he could accomplish this, what he had promised, even though it though it appeared to go against human logic. Regardless, Abraham proceeded to do exactly what God had instructed him to do. Abraham's faith was put into action. Abraham's actions validated his faith. Do you have faith? If so, does your action validate your faith? Can people see from your behavior that you are a follower of Jesus Christ? Are you loving your neighbor as yourself? Are you being disobedient to God's instructions? Are you showing partiality? Are you failing to reach out and help those less fortunate than yourself? Jesus gave a parable that drives home this point. We find it in Luke 10, verses 30 through 35. Let's take a look at it. In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I'll reimburse you for any extra expense you may have here.'" Who are you in this story? Are you the priest or the Levite who saw the person in need but ignored the need? When God brings someone into your life that has a need, do you see the need but choose to avoid them? Are you too busy, or is it too much trouble to try and help? Or are you like the Samaritan who took the time to stop and go out of his way to help the injured man? You might say, "Well, I don't have what it takes to help." Look at the Samaritan. He was not a doctor. He was not trained in medicine, but he used what he had to help the best he could. Are you willing to be inconvenienced when you see a need and stop and give assistance? We need to remind ourselves, do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. Not because it earns our salvation. Rather, it's a fragrant offering to God for the mercy that he has shown us. We do good works out of gratitude for what God has done for us. Faith, it does not save us. Works, it does not save us. We are saved by God's grace. Let's demonstrate our faith in God by our actions, by doing good to others, by being merciful, by helping those in need.